What's up, guys? Joe with Odyssey Off-Road. Thanks for tuning into another video here. So today we're going to talk about the Beta a little bit, and this is a 2024, in case you don't know, Beta Xtrainer that I just purchased a couple weeks ago. And previous to this, I had a Honda CRF 250F. So I want to kind of talk you guys through my decision-making process, why I chose the Beta, why I chose Beta as a brand and the Xtrainer. And as opposed to some of the other brands out there and some of the other makes and models. When I tell you guys it was a long drawn out process, it was a long drawn out process. So this process started for me a couple of years ago before I even got the Honda CRF 250F, which is an air-cooled, beginner trail bike. And wanted to get into dirt biking. I looked at, I kind of at that point narrowed it down to the Yamaha YZ 250FX and then the Honda CRF 250RX. So those are the off-road versions that come with kickstands, forks tuned for off-roading, not track, and basically just a slightly changed version of their motocross bikes. And at the end of the day, I just decided if somebody's never even ridden a motorcycle before, those were way too aggressive for a newbie like myself to buy a bike. So I ended up ultimately settling on the CRF 250F, the air-cooled beginner's trail bike, which was a nice little bike. Not too long after having it and realizing how much I enjoyed it, I knew I was going to want to, at some point, bump up to a bigger bike, something different. And I never haven't had a two-stroke before. I was kind of leaning in that direction just to try one. And all the talk is, with the modern two-strokes, they're not as aggressive and crazy like the old school YZs and Honda CRs, and you don't have that instant two-stroke hit. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden the power band kicks in mid RPMs. They're very linear in their power delivery. This bike is. Most of the Betas are that way. And then any enduro two-stroke bike, which is most of the two-strokes now are enduro bikes. Most of the motocross bikes now are four-strokes, with a couple of exceptions. But so they're tuned in a way to use off-road, more linear power, enduro riding, trail riding, stuff like that. So I started looking, and I had a deposit on a couple of different bikes. So it was crazy, kind of a turn of events for me. So obviously the first thing you look at is price point, right? I had no intentions actually of getting rid of the CRF when I did that soon. My initial plan was to keep it for about a year or so, and then look to upgrade, because I knew I was going to want to do that. So I figured I'll put no money into the Honda. I'll just ride it as is. Don't make any mods to it, and then just sell it in a year. And then I just kind of stumbled on some sales at a few dealers, and everything just seemed to be marked down crazy. So the more I looked into it, it seemed there was a lot. It wasn't just one particular bike. It was everything I could find was marked down crazy rebates and discounts, at least where I am here in Southern Arizona. So I was like, well, for what I'm into it for the Honda, I got a great deal on that thing. I can unload that and get into a better bike now, instead of waiting, which may cost me more money in the long run between the depreciation on the Honda and prices going up and end of the year deals being gone. So I said, well, let me look into doing that now. So I started looking at the KTMs and the Huskies just because, they're supposed to be the best of the best, and they may be. Obviously at this point, I don't have any personal experience with them. Everything here is how great the bikes are, and they're fuel injected, amazing machines, the Austrian bikes. So, and that goes for the gas line too. KTM owns Husky and gas, so they're basically all the same bikes. The gas is just a little more stripped down model, to keep the prices down a little bit. So first bike I looked at was a gas EC 250. That's their enduro. It's kind of compared to the XCW 250. And I was going to get that, but then there was a few things. That bike had the old style open cartridge front forks, um, and there was a few other things it didn't have, as opposed to the Husky and the KTM. And then the other thing was resale value was pretty low on those. They take a pretty big hit if you do plan on like keeping it a couple of years in resale value. So those were factors. The fork's not as much, but I figured if I'm going to go with the Austrian bikes, I may as well go with the ones that come with the updated forks, which would be the Husky and the KTM. So I switched my focus to those. Then looking at the pricing, sitting on them at the dealer, that became another thing for me. So I sat on them. Somebody also mentioned to me the Beta. So at around the same time, I sent a couple inquiries to a dealer in Arizona for Beta motorcycles. And, so I was kind of flirting with everything at that point. The Husky kind of was winning me over just because it came a little more fully loaded in a sense. Came with the map switch on it already. The KTM XCW does not come with the map switch for some reason. I don't know why. Considering that's like the flagship brand under the umbrella. I don't know why that one didn't come with the map switch, but the Husky comes with the standard. I was actually getting a better deal on the Husky too. KTM resale value seems to be a little higher than the Husky. And I was kind of like, yeah, I want to get the orange bike, just because that's the cool thing to do. So I went and sat on one, but I couldn't get as good a deal on the KTM. And I actually ended up getting a really killer price on you guys might think I'm crazy, but the TE or the XCW, the KTM or the Husky. It's the same bike, the TE and the XCW. 150, which 150 sounds small, but then when you look into the numbers, that bike for the new TBI bikes, the throttle body injected, the 2024s, it was a whole new 150. Different than the 23s and previous, which were TPI and a different motor, different power delivery. And these new TBI 150s were actually at 38 horsepower. So really powerful engines. They had actually at 150 had more horsepower than this 300 does. We'll talk about that too. But I was like, well, man, that's crazy. So again, sat on them at the dealer. They felt really tall for me. And that just kind of stuck with me, like just really uncomfortably tall. Like I couldn't even barely tippy toe. I couldn't tippy toe at all. If the bike was straight up and down, I couldn't reach either side. I had to completely lean the bike over to touch the ground on one side. So, of course the dealerships are like, you can get the suspension lowered by, a suspension guy and $600-700, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I'm paying a good amount of money for the bike. Granted, it was a great deal compared to regular pricing just because of the rebates and the leftover 24 models they were trying to get out the door because the 25 is already coming out. So I was getting a great deal on it, but then I'm looking $600-700 more. It'll get it lowered because there's no way I could ride the bike that way. I know everybody says, once you start riding, no big deal. I'm a new rider. I need to feel confidence of being able to touch the ground in uncomfortable terrain in certain areas. You guys seen any of my previous riding videos? I talk about it in those. I'm constantly using my feet and dabbing in the ground just to, in slow stuff or come to a stop or, going through a rough section. Just for confidence, that you could touch the ground. I'd be tipping over a lot more. I would have had a lot more spills had I not been able to reach the ground on the two bikes I bought. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. So, but against my better judgment at the moment, the hype was real. And I was like, well, I'm going to put a deposit on this 150. I was getting a really good price on it. And I was scheduled to pick it up in a couple of days. While I was doing that, obviously, I'm revisiting my thought process. Am I making the right decision? I don't want to go down and make the wrong decision and regret the purchase, get the bike home, be like, man, this thing's too tall. I shouldn't have bought it. I have to pay an extra $700 or whatever it's going to cost to get the suspension done. I didn't want to go with the cheap lowering link for the rear because that's not the right way to do it. It just messes up your geometry and the suspension travel numbers and all that stuff. So the right way to do it is to get it professionally lowered and internally in the forks and the shock. And, adding that to the price I'm already paying for the bike. At the same time, Guy from the Beta dealership reaches out to me and gives me an out-the-door price on a 200RR, which is the other bike I was looking at. And the number blew away the KTM and the Husky 150. And I was like, well, man, that's really tempting. So I said, all right, let me think about it. Revisited that night the RX Honda and the FX Yamaha briefly, then realized not what I was looking for, motocross. They're kind of really motocross bikes with a kickstand. Wasn't looking to go that route. Great bikes, but it wasn't for me, not at this time in my life. So I also kind of thought I want to have a bike that has a headlight, a tail light, the ability to make it street legal. Here in Arizona, you can make anything street legal, so it'd be one step closer. And even if I didn't need it for the street, which I'm not going to use it much for the street, but like already I've been out on my ATVs. I've been out many times, out in evening sunset ride. I go out, do that a lot, especially late in the summer days. It's hot, it's cooler then. Just the other night, me and my son came home on a quad ride, and it got dark while we were out. Have headlights, not a big deal. So I wanted something with a headlight and a tail light, and that narrows it down to obviously the enduro lines from the XC, the KTM, Husky, the Gas, and the Betas. So I also looked at, because the price was so cheap, a 2024 Kawasaki KX250X, which is their off-road kind of motocross bike. Similar to the Honda and the Yamaha I just previously mentioned. Kind of like the motocross bike with the little bit softer fork and kickstand, pretty much. But again, no headlight and stuff like that. But the price that the bike was on sale for was ridiculously low. I could have added a street legal kit and it probably still been out the door way cheaper than I would have for a KTM or a Husky. But the two-stroke was luring me to the dark side still in my mind. And then I also realized Kawasaki, another strike against that one was it's only got a 1.6 gallon fuel tank. So if you can do off-road riding, a lot of trail riding, and going out on long rides, that just wasn't going to cut it. I would also need to upgrade the fuel tank on that, which you're probably going to want to do if you're going to do really long rides on all the bikes. But to get you started, most of the other enduro bikes, like for this one, for example, is 2.4 gallons. The Husky and KTMs come with 2.5 gallons. So you get more fuel to work with here right off the gate. That 1.6 gallon was a really low number. I can't see being able to go more than 30 miles on that. And I've already been out on this thing for over 30 miles and come home with half a tank still. So that wouldn't have worked for me. I would have had to keep going back to the truck and refuel or carry extra fuel with me a lot. And so I didn't want to go down that. I said, okay, well, that's out. So I'm back to the KTM, the Husky, and the Beta. Revisited them all again, did a little more research, and then so I called the Beta dealer. I said, okay, let's go with the 200RR. I got my deposit back on the 150 Husky, and I put a deposit to order the Beta 200RR. At that point, when I placed the order for the Beta, it was the day before they were Beta USA's headquarters in California. That week that I placed the order, they had all the leftover 24s in their warehouse. Dealer had to get it from the warehouse. So they have to ship it to the dealer, place the order with the warehouse is what the dealer does, and then they'll ship it to them. So it was the day before their big move. So it wasn't going to get shipped for over a week. That week, they will pretty much close so they can move facilities. So I placed the order on 200RR. After that, I'm watching all kinds of 200RR content, of course, because I'm excited. That's what I'm going to get. Had my mind made up, so I thought. And then I came to find out, well, bike's not counterbalanced, which maybe is not a big deal. But, two-strokes are a little more vibraty than four-stroke is. They don't run as smooth. So to not get a counterbalanced bike, I didn't want to really deal with a bike that has a lot of vibrations. And it may not, but I know I did find out it was not a counterbalanced bike. So that was like, gave me a little hesitation. The other thing was While it had great suspension, the 200 power plant, at some point, if I wanted to upgrade the power, would it be as difficult? It's still a 200 at the end of the day, right? I know they're great bikes, and you could change the head, change the pipe, and you can get more power out of them. But I said to myself, you know, it's also a little bit of a taller bike too. Not as tall as the KTM and the Huskies. They're like almost 38 inches. The Yamaha, the one I mentioned earlier, that's like a 38.6 inch seat height or something. I mean, absolutely. Some of these bikes, I don't know where they're doing with the seat heights. Like, giants aren't riding these things, guys. Like, I know you need for the big suspension travel, and I know that increases the seat height. But the old school bikes had a lot of suspension travel too, but the seats were kind of a little more arched so that you could sit in like a saddle more or less. Now these bikes are all straight across seats, and you can't even touch the grounds on them. You know, it's crazy. I'm like 5'6.5", 5'7". So a bike that tall it's not really easy to ride for me. So what I did was I called my Beta dealer, the guy I had placed the order with. And it was Mike at Dirt Riders West in Phoenix. If you guys are in the market for a Beta and you're within a few hour drive of the Phoenix area, even next state over, I highly suggest giving that dude a call. Super helpful, super knowledgeable. He basically put my mind at ease with every hesitation I had about buying a Beta. And we'll get into that here in a minute too, another reason that led me to the Beta. So I talked it over with him. I was like, look, the drawbacks to the Xtrainers, this is the Xtrainer 300, is when you get really good at riding and you start riding really aggressively, the suspension at that point needs to be upgraded a little bit. That's the downside of this bike. The motor, though, is a 300RR motor that's just detuned. So there's a spacer on the power valve expansion side. There's a smaller expansion chamber pipe. There's a restricted plate in the airbox. And I think the CDI might be different. But those are all easily changed things. I mean, like, cheaply, too. And you have the power of a full 300RR at some point. So you can slowly do it in stages if you want. I could just change the pipe, open up the airbox. Simple little things. The airbox mod, for example, is $15. It's just the cage for the air filter. It's restricted on the Xtrainer, and on a 300RR, it's fully open. So just that alone is going to give you a huge boost. So, and that's $15 mod. So you see where I'm going here. I had the ability to make this bike at some point more power as I grew into it. And the suspension is fully upgradable too. You can either send this stuff out and get it rebuilt, or Beta sells on their website fully upgraded forks, full fork set and rear shock. You can completely make it a 300RR pretty much. With the benefit of the Xtrainer is a slightly smaller chassis. So it's about, they say 10 to 15% smaller than the full-size RR bikes. To me, it's still a big bike, but it's slightly smaller than the full race bikes. So the seat height is under 36 inches. For me, that's awesome. I can touch the ground. I have no problem. It's been terrific in that regard, and I'm super happy with that aspect of this bike. Super happy. I'm super happy with every aspect of this bike. We'll get into that on another video, but so I said, okay, let's do the Xtrainer, because I know I can upgrade this, the power, I can upgrade the suspension. The seat height's right out of the box. That's going to be mint for me, and it is. It has been. So I'm super happy I made the decision. The Beta has just really worked out well for me. So once I decided on the Beta, there's some other... Now, Beta is not as big of a company as KTM, which owns Husqy and Gas. So of those, once I narrowed it down to obviously an enduro bike with the headlight and all that stuff, those were the brands that I was concentrating on looking at. The other option was a Yamaha WR250, which has a headlight. It's their off-road enduro bike, but the lure for a two-stroke was real for me, so I kind of wanted to try a two-stroke, so I kind of ruled that out. But those are really nice bikes, and if it wasn't that I wanted a two-stroke, that might have been a really strong option for me. Other things I was considering was weight. This bike is 216 pounds without fuel. So if you add fuel to it, full tank of gas, you're looking at about close to 230 pounds, maybe 230 pounds, fully wet, ready to ride. That is, and I can tell you from riding it right now, in the time I've had about 5 hours on it, it's like it's like having a BMX bike or a mountain bike in between your legs. You maneuver it around, it turns on a dime, it's flickable, it's very unrestrictive in your riding, in the sense like you don't feel like you have this big cumbersome bike in between your legs. It is light and narrow and very, very, very easy to ride. I cannot stress that enough. So that was part of my decision-making process, and again, that led me to the Xtrainer, and again, it's worked out well. It's worked out great. I'm glad that I considered that as part of my decision-making process. The other part of my decision-making process was part availability. So there were other brands I looked at too. There's Sherco, which is a French company. I believe they're made in France. And then there's another brand, and they're out of Spain, I believe. And they are Rieju. Now, Rieju is a lesser-known brand of all of them. But Rieju basically, when KTM bought Gas several years ago, they basically made the Gas the same bike as the KTM. So the way Gases were being made up to that point, the rights to those makes and models and the building of them were sold. Rieju bought the rights to those bikes, so the previous Gas line, and so all the new Rieju bikes are the old Gases. So I knew they'd be decent bikes. And I never heard of them, but a couple of people said, hey, why don't you consider one of those? And I did look into it. Very hard to get. Hardly any dealerships around me. I think there's one up in Phoenix. They had no bikes in stock. Part availability is not that great on those. I hear getting parts if something breaks. And then the other one was Sherco. There's nobody around me that sells Shercos. They were actually sold a couple of years ago. Were not sold, but apparently the people who run that company a couple of years ago changed hands, and it's really, customer service wise, been downhill from what I've been told. There's no dealers around me that sell them, so getting parts for those again would be a nightmare probably. Beta is a very unique company. They're family owned and operated still, so they're kind of a boutique brand, but they're big, getting big to the point where they sell a lot of units. So they're almost like the biggest, most mass-produced boutique brand. And because of that, they have a lot of following. They have a lot of very good customer service records. Everybody you talk to that has had a Beta, even if they've had a problem with their Beta, the one thing they always say is getting the parts wasn't that difficult, and the customer service from Beta USA was top-notch. I can't speak to how customer service for Beta is in the other countries, but I can speak for USA, which is where I live. And Beta USA really takes care of their customers. So that was the other thing when I was talking to Mike at Dirt Riders West in Phoenix. I said, look, last thing I want, Mike, is to have a bike, buy a Beta, which is a lesser known brand, lesser mass-produced brand than the others. Something breaks and I need a part, and I'm out the bike for a month because I can't wait on this part, or even weeks, and miss out on riding. So he said, and he pretty much reassured me that everything is stocked. The Beta USA warehouse in California, they keep everything in stock. The longest you're going to wait for a part is 3 days. From California to here to Arizona is a couple days shipping. The other thing about Beta is you don't need to go to your dealer to order parts. You can order right from them on their website. So you order what you need. You put your dealership name in. Your dealership will get the credit just the same way as you would be if you ordered from them directly, and they drop ship the parts right to your house. I've seen them take care of warranty issues that way, where people are far away from their dealership and the speedometer stops working or something silly, and Beta sends them the part right to their house. Customer can install it themselves. That is terrific customer service. The other thing with the customer service is the warranty. You get a 6-month warranty with Beta. I think Sherco, you get a 6-month warranty, and Rieju is a year. But again, I already discussed those other brands and why I ruled those out. So the KTM lineup, 30 days. That's pretty much like a taillight warranty. If you you buy it and after 30 days something happens, you're screwed. And I've not heard very many stories where beyond 30 days something happens and KTM steps up and says, "Oh yeah, no, we'll replace your motor because your motor seized at 32 days." There may be cases out there, but I've heard of some where they did not. And I've heard of situations where Beta USA has warranted a motor or warranted things for customers 2 years into ownership, well out of warranty, taking it to the dealer and getting a phone call from the dealer and say, "Hey, Beta USA is going to take care of you. They're replacing the entire engine." There's a couple cases I read where for a few years they had on their 300 motors, they had some crank bearing issues. And so they had already extended the warranty on those just in case you had that issue. And there was a couple of people who had like 100 and some odd hours on their motor and their crank bearing went bad. And Beta put an entire new engine in their bike, free of charge, covered everything. And they had the bike back in like a week. So it was super fast too, on top of being free and under warranty. That to me speaks volumes about a company. And I'd love to be involved with something like that. And I like to also be a little different than the mainstream. Everybody around me is riding a KTM. KTMs are nice, and I wouldn't have, golfed at the chance to own one. But at the end of the day, I settled on the Beta because it was everything I wanted. The price was ridiculously low. I got this bike $7,900 out the door. That's tax, title, license, registered, street legal, everything. The whole ball of wax out the door, loaded in my truck, $7,900. So for what you're getting, that is an unbelievable deal. The lowest I'd be looking at with the KTM and the Husky out the door was about $10,500. So I saved myself about $2,500. I could take that $2,500 and put that into upgrading this suspension if I really wanted to, and have an ultimate bike, and still have the low seat height, still have the rideability, still have the low weight, the lighter bike, everything I wanted. This bike is carb, it's not fuel injected, but it is oil injected, so you don't have to mix the gas with oil. So that's really nice. Carburetor's been tuned really well. I haven't had any issues where I am. It's got factory jetting in it, which I think is a 38 Pilot and a 145 main. I'm not 100% sure on that, but let me double check. Yes, it's a 145 main and a 38 Pilot jet, which comes with it. That jet is, according to the owner's manual, good up to 2,500 feet. I'm at about 2,800 feet here where I live, and the bike runs mint. Like, doesn't seem to be running too rich. Doesn't bog. It's super snappy. Very good power delivery. Super happy with the way it's running. So don't see the need to change any jetting. And plus two, with it being, even if it is a little slightly rich, if I do the airbox mod, it'll probably even it out and I won't need to adjust the jetting. So I'm super happy with it. And ultimately, for everything I've stated above, previous in this video, is the reason that led me to the Beta. And it's been great so far. I have zero regret, absolutely zero regret. It has been flawless. Obviously only about 5 hours on the bike, but it is so fun to ride. It's so easy to ride. As you can see, we did some hand guards on it. That's the only thing I've done to the bike. And we'll probably add a bigger fuel tank, which and Beta sells that stuff. They sell a bigger fuel tank made by IMS right on their website. I think this is 2.4 gallons. I think it gives you 2.9 something, just under 3 gallons you'll have. So you'll get an extra half a gallon fuel capacity. They sell any upgrade you would want to do to your bike right on their website, Beta USA. You can order right from them, from full forks with triple trees to pipes, to mufflers, to skid plates, to protection, to frame guards, hand guards, everything. It's incredible. So really, really good brand, so it seems. I'm very happy with the purchase. And if you guys are kind of thinking in the same boat as me, and you're going back and forth, what do I want? Consider all the things I mentioned above for your purchase. I mean, there's a lot of factors. Don't just buy the bike that looks the best to you and the bike that your ego tells you to want. Buy the bike that makes sense. And for some people that's financially, for some people that's size, for some people that's, I guess, the look of the bike. Some people it's power and suspension. But it depends on your circumstance and what you're looking for out of the bike. For me, I wanted something easy to ride. I could touch the ground. I can grow into and grow with. And this bike checked all those boxes. For me anyway. So that's it. That's my decision. I've gotten a lot of questions why I chose this bike over some of the other bikes that I mentioned already. And so I kind of wanted to make a video and talk about that. So I hope this video was helpful for some of you. I'm going to cut this one a little bit shorter than my traditional videos. We're only at about 30 minutes. So this is Joe with Odyssey Off-Road. Appreciate you guys tuning in and watching the whole video. If you watched to this point, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. And smash the like button on your way out. That really helps a lot. Leave a comment below. It helps the algorithm, helps YouTube. Spread the word about my videos and let other people see them, and pumps up the algorithm for my channel so we can get a little more exposure and help the channel grow. And more channel grows, the more videos I can make for you guys. If you guys have any requests on additional videos or information about the Beta Xtrainer, feel free to leave a comment below. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. You guys can message me there too. I try to get back to everybody as quick as possible. And again, this is Joe with Odyssey Off-Road. Thanks so much. Get out there and ride safe. We'll catch you guys out on the next one.